Welcome to Goober Time with Dr. Chris Chismore, hosted by Tom and Griffin.
We are your hosts, Tom and Griffin.
Unfortunately, our illustrious friend, Dr. Chris Chismore, is away on his important research and unable to host a podcast this week.
But fear not, dear listener, because he has left us in charge, and we are going to try to do a really good job of a podcast.
This week, Dr. Chismore has asked us to talk about strangers. Dum-ba-bum. Imagine you're sitting maybe on a park bench by yourself.
And it's a warm, hazy day in New York City.
Oh, a thick, humid summer day. You're reading your book, and there's a crowd about in the park.
There's you have an iced coffee, and there's condensation forming on the outside of that iced coffee, and inside the iced coffee, it's kind of getting to the point where you're like, this is kind of getting watered down, but I got my coffee's worth, I got my hit's worth, and you're looking up, you know, between your book and the environment around you, and all you see is people,
an endless sea of people. And you realize I don't know any of them.
Yeah, you say none of these people are my friends. There's at least 5 people here in the park, in Central Park.
Oh, I thought it was a bustling park.
Yeah, well, there's at least 5 people.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There's at least 5 people. There's anywhere from 5 to 300 people nearby, and I don't know a single one of them.
Not even one of them. And there's at least 5.
And maybe you recognize one or two of them just from being at the park, because you go to this park.
Or maybe you recognize them from social media or even the movies. But you don't know them.
No.
Those are parasocial friendships.
Yes, because these people, to you, are strangers.
And then I'll keep going. And then a shadow falls over you, and you're startled. You look up from your iced coffee you were considering having another sip of. And who's this? Well, this stranger has on a fedora and a trench coat, and you can't really see his face. He's backed by the sun. He's sort of silhouetted, and he's quite tall. He's a tall, dark stranger. And he says, "I'm with the CIA. Could you come with me?" And your adventure begins.
Because that's one of the caveats of strangers. One of the coolest thing about strangers is that you never know who they are and where they could take your life.
Exactly. That's one of my first major liking things of strangers.
Yeah. I agree.
A fully demented way to...
And I'm glad you took it there, because that's a much better place to leap off from. I was thinking that the stranger was going to... I really wanted to hop in and make the stranger David Copperfield, the magician. So that he wasn't... You said, "Oh my God, it's David Copperfield."
And then you notice there's another shoulder, or another shadow falls over your other shoulder, and you turn to the other side of the bench, and because the sun is on the opposite side, thus obscuring the first stranger, you can see this second stranger, and you look up, and it's
Maurice Copperfield. His son, his prodigy son.
David Copperfield's son.
Maurice Copperfield.
And Maurice says, "I'm Maurice Copperfield. Won't you come with me?"
And I think David Copperfield says, "Yeah, he's with me. That's my son, Maurice Copperfield."
Oh, there's a third stranger, and it's David Copperfield. He's also there.
They're
both there?
No, David Copperfield was the first stranger. Maurice Copperfield was the second stranger.
The first stranger was a guy in the CIA.
Okay. All right, we're off the rails. We're off the rails. Let's go back. We're on a good thing.
Thank God we're not doing improv anymore.
Yeah, it's dead, and so is our improvisational ability. I think one of the coolest things about strangers, you never know who they are or where they're going to take you, where they're going to take your life.
In a good bad way.
Yes, in a good way and in a bad way.
I think mostly positive. I think it's mostly I got a positive outlook on strangers right now. I think if you take me away, well, I mean, if you like bonk me in the head and take me away, that's no good. I don't like that. If you're kind of abducting people, that's miss me with that type of stranger. But if you're sort of being weird in a way that I've never seen before, or weird in a classic way that I've seen before, I like them both, and both of them turn into some, I don't know if that would be like what's called type 2 fun, but you can have that out of a stranger, and even that's good.
Yes, type 2 fun. Can you define that for me and our listeners in case you haven't
I don't know where I've heard this recently, but it's fun. We all know fun.
Yes,
of course, of summer fame.
Yeah,
of after school, of recess fame, and well, then type 2 fun, as far as I understand it, is your something kind of bad happens, or something hard or difficult, and sucking actually happens.
Yeah.
But it's sort of the type of thing that in retrospect is fun.
Yes.
Almost immediate retrospect. In fact, that you can maybe even appreciate, this sucks, but it is a funny experience that I'm having right now.
Yes. So the type of fun you might get from rock climbing or outdoor adventure or I'd
say
live performance.
Live performance, sure. I'd say even we've had type 2 fun on a bachelor party.
Yes, yeah, that's very true.
Which is the topic of, that's 3 episodes from now, I'm calling it. We're probably going to do bachelor parties.
Yeah, that would be an excellent topic, bachelor parties.
We had the most type 2...
If Chris wills it, sorry.
Right. If Dr. Chismo wants us to talk about that. And I'd say we had the most type 2 type of fun on a bachelor party with strangers, with, if we keep the part in where I already said his name, with a friend of the show and already mentioned Joseph Brennan's.
Yes.
Or on Joseph Brennan's bachelor party.
Yeah, that was...
Not non-public figure, outing him now. If your Instagram's public, I'm saying your name on the pod. I'm doxing you.
Yeah. Well, he is a public figure. He was on the local news in Mobile, Alabama for organizing a Jimmy Buffett
yes.
bar, not more than a bar crawl.
No, it was a Jimmy Buffett tribute parade.
Yeah. It was a parade.
In the midst of trying, well, this is maybe scooping him, but I think he's trying to get sort of an annual event off the ground. He's also local man in favor of a gas station or anti a gas station in his neighborhood. He's been on the local news at least 2, maybe 3 times as local man. And we went on his bachelor party, and we loved Joseph.
Yeah, it was a good time. There was
and it was a good,
some type 2 fun.
It was a good time. I would say it was almost immediate type 2 fun. Almost immediately, a guy got so drunk we couldn't find him.
Yeah.
There was no food. And I've had this on multiple bachelor parties, and this is for the bachelor party episode, but we can go into more there. But there was no food but bread.
Yeah, no food but bread and muffins, Costco muffins, and pita without pita bread.
Yep.
Not pita, hummus without pita bread. Massive amount of hummus, nothing to scoop the hummus with.
Dorito, I think plain tortilla chip. It was bread. Yeah. It was bread as far as the eye could see. And they said, don't worry, we've cooked some biscuits. And I said, well, God damn it, that's bread too, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I didn't sleep maybe for a day and a half.
Yes.
I felt so fucked up because we got there, got drunk, and then had to get up at 5 a.m. to go on a fishing boat.
Offshore fishing,
in which everybody was just sick as hell immediately. I got seasick for the first time in my life.
I was not.
Yeah, you were not.
I felt good.
I wasn't even hungover, but some people were hungover, yakking off the side of the... And we didn't eat any real food. Tom and I got really upset about how... Sorry, Joseph, if you're hearing this and you didn't know that we were upset about not having any food, but we did. And we said, God damn it. What did you say, Tom? You said something along the lines of like, we're going to go to the grocery store and we're going to bring back one fucking vegetable and these guys are going to lose their goddamn minds.
Yeah.
And we made tacos out of the fish we caught.
With some peppers. Yeah.
With some peppers, and the fish were all filled with pin bones. You couldn't really eat them, it turned out.
Yeah.
And then Tom wanted to go get in the ocean. And well, wouldn't you know it, Tom got hit by jellyfish immediately.
Yeah, immediately got stung by jellyfish. Got out and got back into a different spot and got hit by jellyfish again. Yeah. And me and friend of the pod, Luke Knoll, were laughing. That was immediate type 2 fun. That was type 2 fun that was immediately hilarious. Yes. And I still remember this whole trip fondly because it was in many ways an absolute disaster. Yeah. Everyone surrounding us was kind of a stranger.
Everybody was a stranger except for Luke Knoll and Joseph Brennan.
Yeah.
And Harrison.
Yeah. That guy.
I think he lived in Chicago.
Yeah. We had met him before.
Yes, he was a big fan of the strangers.
The rest of them were strangers, though. There was the one guy who
Won't be
got
named.
super drunk, talked about having a fiance, but then like made out with another woman while we were at the bachelor party.
And now we're heading into dangerous territory.
Whatever. What I was gonna say
Not my problem.
Yeah, not my problem either. But what I was gonna say is that man came back. He broke like 5 glasses trying to make mixed drinks before we went to bed, and then he just shoved.
He was naked too.
Yeah.
During that, because I have a video of my phone of him being naked, making like margaritas or whatever.
Yeah, and then the next day I had to dig. I dug like 8 full limes out of the garbage disposal that he had just shoved in
Limes,
there.
you're saying?
Limes.
Green.
Yeah.
I thought it was green limes.
And I was like, who puts a full lime in the garbage disposal? Anyway, classic stranger behavior. I feel like with strangers, I used to be really pro stranger, and I feel like the older I've gotten, I'm probably like more not more.
That's okay.
Not majority anti stranger, but I've become more anti stranger, and I'm like, don't bother me. I won't bother you. I think in LA you have to be particularly cautious of strangers.
Because some of them want money from you, and they want to use you for their career. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's less of wanting money as if, people are going to bother you, but I think it's more like wanting time to rant about themselves.
Oh,
that's my number one thing. That's one of the things I just can't stand about strangers. Like we're both very sociable guys.
And very famous and successful.
Yeah, very famous and successful.
And people want things from us, and they want to tell us about their story.
Yeah. I think that when I was younger, I used to be like, oh, it's fun that there's an older adult talking to me. But then the more and more I did it, I was like, all they want to do is talk about themselves.
Their weird little project, their web series.
Yeah.
Or their family troubles.
Yeah.
Or anything.
Or they just have all these tall tales that they're rambling on, and you're like, okay, one tall tale is kind of cute, but then they go on, and you're just like, they're just spinning all these tales.
They're spinning. Yeah.
Too many tales.
I'd say older strangers are the ones spinning the tales.
Yeah, but as I've gotten closer to, past and well into my 30s, I'm like, oh, no one like my age. I don't see too many people my age do it, but it's also like I've also talked to plenty of people. I'm like, oh, this person seems normal. This woman seems normal, and then it's just like ramble, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm captive.
I'm captive.
I'm
I
a
can't
captive
get away.
person. It's just you can't let yourself be hijacked by a stranger. I'll always give someone the time of day. That's the type of guy I am.
The distrust of strangers or whatever, I think it's a function of or not liking them so much as a function of being old. I think this is what happens when you get old. You get conservative. You say, I don't got no time for nobody else. And it's, it's just going to happen. But also I think it's maybe one of the things that you can kind of push back on. You can kind of be aware of and try to keep yourself a little bit mentally young by saying, I'm open to new experiences. I can't be exhausted all the time.
Yeah.
The moment that I'm, defining myself as exhausted constantly is the moment that I am dying. Though I say that, then I was at the DMV yesterday getting my real ID and my California driver's license for the first time. Lived here for 3 years. But a guy almost immediately approached me and said, it was like kind of a young man, maybe about our age, and said, hey, do you have an ID? Do you have a driver's license? And I said, yes. And he said, okay, I'm here to get my driver's license test, and I have to have brought somebody who already has their license. Will you take my test with me? I need you to be in the car. And I said, no. And he kind of stopped as if that was like kind of surprising. And then he I could see him kind of like working his brain. He was like, yeah. Well, I'd pay you. I said, I'm sorry. No, man, I want to be done with this. And then I have to go back to work.
Yeah.
I was also dreadfully tired. I thought I hadn't slept well, and I maybe hadn't, but mostly I hadn't eaten. It was about 3:45 in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. I hadn't eaten since 10 a.m. And I thought I maybe was going to have to go to the hospital, or like I was going to maybe pass out at the DMV. I thought he was going to kind of give me guff, but he said, no, totally. I get it. Okay. And then he left, and then a couple minutes went by. I see him walk back to the front of the line, cut everybody because he's already been up there, and they told him, come up here once you figure it out. and he was with objectively one of the most beautiful women I have ever seen in my life. And she was just so happy to be helping him. And I thought, I've done strangers wrong by not helping this guy, because who knows what kind of strange adventure I could have had in his car on his driver's test. And he has done strangers so well because now he's being helped by what seems like one of the like most positive, happiest, like, and most beautiful people at the DMV is now along the ride with him, along for the ride with him. And it's sort of two different modes of stranger. I protected myself. He has to keep himself open to it.
Yes.
And now, who knows, man? And maybe they're getting married. Maybe that's the way. That's the way you meet women in LA.
And she, probably thought, hey, well, this could be a producer.
And he could have been. And what's fucked up is he could have been. I could have just fucked my career up worse than I already have.
That's okay. I think it's pretty unlikely for him to have been a big time movie producer.
Yeah, but it's way more likely here.
Yeah, that's very true. Which is that's another thing that they say about strangers is, and a big trope throughout stranger lore.
Stranger literature.
Stranger literature is you must be kind to strangers, for you never know who they might be.
Yes.
Like in the
One
example,
could be Christ himself.
It could be Christ himself. It could
be...
Or Muhammad, yes.
Maybe he comes back. I don't know if that's in there, but...
Yeah.
Or... who do the Jews like?
They're just waiting for the Messiah.
Oh, so some guy. It could be any guy.
It could be could be anyone. Messiah. Yeah, I
derail your.
You went straight up religious, as in like you never know who Christ.
I thought that there's like some fucking biblical parable that's like that. So I thought that's what you're doing.
But I was thinking more in like lore, like folklore, where they're like, oh, there's a stranger, like in Beauty and the Beast, right? Isn't he gets turned into a beast because there's a stranger? There's an old woman who shows up to his door and is like, I need help. And then he's like, oh, you're a fucking ugly bitch. Like
that which is in there. That's
yeah. But he's like, no, I'm not gonna help you. You're ugly. And then she's and he's like, no, I'm not helping you. You're a weird stranger. And then she turns and she's like, oh, actually, I'm a beautiful, beautiful witch. And then he was like, oh, fuck. Oh no.
I could have got my nut.
Yeah, oh no, this woman was so hot and I judged her based on appearance and I didn't treat strangers well, and so now I must live as a beast. Oh, I'm pretty sure that's why he got turned into a beast.
I think that's maybe. I don't think it's an unpopular opinion. I think that's maybe one of the worst Disney movies. I think people don't really like to revisit that one, and I think probably rightfully so. I don't remember a thing about it.
Yeah, I don't think the optics have aged well. I think that as each generation comes along, we consume so much media that the old simple tales of the 90s don't hold up anymore.
That was a backup name for the podcast, The Old Simple Tales. That's actually when Tom gets tired of me and is like, well, this has gotten too fucking corporate, actually. Goober Time is like, it's like never quite what I wanted it to be, and we've sold out. Tom's going to go off and do his own spin-off pod called The Old Simple Tales with Tom Fell.
You joke, but last night I literally was like, I don't want to watch TV just for the sake of turning on something and watching a screen. So I was like, what will really relax me is turning on a ghost story podcast. I did want to get back on the stranger lore though.
Yeah. Back to stranger.
Because there's so much, I think when Chris told us that we were going to be talking about strangers, I got really excited because there is so much good stranger lore. Not only is there the old witch, there's also, I took a Greek mythology class in college.
As did I.
One of the biggest things they talked about there was a concept called xenia, which in Greek mythology, I think was, if you didn't treat a traveler or a stranger well, then like that was like one of the worst sins you could commit. So I was like, it was like, oh, if a traveler comes by, you must give them a meal, you must house them. And there are numerous occasions, going back to your religious thing, where like Zeus or a god would disguise themselves as a traveler to test a king or someone, a peasant or anyone that they wanted to like, do some snooping on. And if they weren't treated well, then they were like, this person deserves the bad stuff I'm about to do to them.
Which
you know?
for Zeus would be, I'm going to turn myself into a goose and rape him.
Yeah, which which for
He
Zeus
maybe
and
thought was the
involved a
good
lot of
stuff he
rape.
was going to do to him.
Yeah, but then and there's also the Japanese. There's also like, isn't there that crazy Japanese folklore where it's like a woman comes up and she's like, it's like a demon or a little like ghost where it's like, oh, do you think I'm pretty?
Don't know.
And then if you say yes, like she'll kill you, and if you say no, you also get killed. But then the way you deal with her is to say that like she'll be like, she'll come up and she'll be like, do you think I'm pretty? And then you'll be like, oh, let me see your face. And she'll reveal her face, and it's just the most grotesque, nasty, fucked up looking ghoulish shit ever.
Right.
And if you say yes, then she'll kill you because she knows you're lying. And if you say no, she'll kill you because she wants to be pretty. However, if you say, I'm sorry, I need to go, or like you have to make up an excuse and be like, I need to be going, or like you make up an excuse for why you can't answer the question.
Right.
She won't kill you, and it's like this weird.
This
like,
is why the Japanese are always running away from you.
yeah, but it's like it serves a purpose of like, this is how you deal with stranger. Like, this is like
You polite.
the way to be polite is to like make up an excuse where you don't have to answer the question at all.
I've never heard that at all. That is incredible.
There's a whole wonderful folklore of these things.
Yes.
And a user. God, I want to fucking KMS. Oh man, I've been working too much this week.
Oh, you user.
Oh God, I'm
Tom
sorry.
thinks the whole world is Reddit.
I'm sorry, everybody. A listener or somebody.
Yeah, that's how online you've made him.
I feel terrible for saying that. I need to stop working. But no, a listener will know exactly what we're talking about. But there's also the rhyme of the ancient mariner. Did you ever have to read that? These two people are trying to have a nice wedding.
We're just trying to have a nice wedding.
And a
Honey,
hooded guest.
They wake up in the morning, first thing in the parable, and he rolls over to her and he says, honey, what's the one thing we're going to do today? And then she looks at him and they say in unison, just have a nice wedding.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of.
And they say that about 3 times, and on the 3rd time, something bad happens, which is
yes, if I remember correctly, it is someone attending a wedding, and they're like, "Yeah, I was at this wedding. These people are trying to have a nice wedding. There's this weird hooded guest." There's a weird hooded guest,
Right.
and so of course I'm going to talk to the guy.
Right, you shouldn't
and
be
then
there.
the guy tells me this crazy story about how he killed an albatross and how he's cursed at sea, and like he's the mariner. He's like an old sailor that somehow ended up crashing this wedding. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the guy who wrote the poem is like, yeah, this is all this. He gets pretty much held captive by this weird seaman.
Oh.
And
stranger captive.
Yeah, stranger
he's
captive.
hearing all his tall
and he's
tales.
like, yeah, this is the rhyme of this
trying to have this
ancient
fucking
mariner.
wedding.
I was just at the wedding trying to have a
for
good time,
cursing.
and this ancient mariner cornered me and told me about how he was cursed because he killed an albatross.
Bored.
And like, it's a whole thing, but it was so funny to me that I'm like, oh, there's so many like weird little stranger things. The more I was thinking,
is there a lesson in there, or is it just kind of sucks for him?
the lesson is that just like, I don't know if there's a lesson. I'd have to reread the poem, but everyone was like, this is a good,
Okay,
it lasted,
sure.
it made it into, English lit.
Sure.
So, yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
This is once again, somehow you've turned this into one of your little ghost story podcasts.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but anyway, there are a lot of fun stranger, tropes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of others. I mean, with the classic stranger danger.
Yeah, which isn't even true most times.
Right,
the crimes happen by people that you know.
Most people
like-
touching kids are
Yeah.
related to them, or
Yes,
somebody.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. I feel like I don't remember any of the messaging, any of the imagery from Stranger Danger, but I was definitely told about Stranger Danger. That phrase was drilled into my head to the point that I do remember one day at elementary school we were doing like running laps or some shit on the back little track, and I remember just being so like noticing there was like a cutlass driving by the school really slow, and the guy was like looking at the kids. And I immediately went to the teacher and I said, there has been a stranger danger. And she was like, what? I was like, there was a guy who was driving a car and he was watching all of us. And the teacher rolled her eyes and went back to doing whatever she was doing. Absolutely could not be bothered. Don't know if anything
You're
ever
probably as
came
a
of
kid,
it.
you're like, these are kids. I'm so sick of dealing with these
I
kids.
guess
They just
so,
make
but
shit
like
up all the time.
I do remember being like, this seems different than just people driving by the school.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I don't know. Nobody, I don't know if anybody ever got stolen from that school, but
Yeah, that's why we should arm
it scared
kids.
the literal shit out of me.
Well, and if we armed kids with the vocabulary necessary to convey the gravity of the situation,
Right,
by
and-
just telling kids this is a molester, and you should say, I think there is a molester outside, and I don't want him to molest me or touch my penis.
Right.
Then
Or-
kids would be
or
much
vagina.
more equipped to say
There's a molester.
there's a molester
Instead of
outside,
there's a
and I
stranger
think he wants me. Yeah.
We should arm the children with the correct vocabulary, and I'll say it, a few of the correct guns, the correct rifles.
Yeah,
I
38
think
special.
we should arm the children with hunting rifles. None of this AR platform horse shit.
Yes.
I want to. We need to be giving fourth graders 30-06s, just in case they feel unsafe. Because I don't think they'll really be able to use it, but it would be kind of intimidating. It's scary if you're a molester
Yeah.
and you know every fourth grader has a Remington 30-06 on them, and if they could figure out how to pick the whole thing up, they could hurt you.
Yeah, my
You'd
sister.
probably stay away.
My sister in college got mugged. Her and her friends got mugged by like literal kids with guns.
Oh, good gosh!
And they didn't have like an actual gun. It was
Lord.
it ended up being a BB gun. But it's not a funny story, but she did tell it in a very funny way, where she was like, "Yeah, it was kind of freaky. These like young kids showed up. They had guns. They wanted our money, so we gave them our money. But then like they were kids, and so we went to the police, and we were like, they were kids with guns, and they're like right over there."
Right.
And she said they immediately found the kids, got them, and got us our stuff back.
Nice, hey.
Because they were children mugging people.
easy to find.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you've ever had a legitimately scary experience with a stranger.
With a stranger, yeah. They're not fun. Probably if the ones that immediately come to mind, also around the same
Yeah.
age. I was in a Kentucky Fried Chicken once with my dad and my brother. I don't know if my sister had been born yet, but it was, tiny little brother. And my dad went to go get something, use a bathroom or something. Left us at the booth by ourselves. And this man came over, this huge guy, and he came over and he just stood in front of our booth and just stared at me and Madison. I don't know if Madison would remember this, but he was just staring at us and just kind of breathing, and he was like this sort of horror figure, horror character looking guy,
Yeah.
just kind of like looking down his nose. He's a big fat dude, just kind of. It was horrifying. And then my dad came over and got in his face immediately and scared him off. I think a lot of my stranger stories are certified I was being targeted by a pedophile. There was another one. I was at the Memphis Zoo with summer camp, and there was, again, this pale, sort of fleshy looking freaky guy. We were having lunch, and he came and he set up shop a couple picnic tables away from this group of I don't know how many, 100 middle school to high school boys. And just kind of sat there and just stared at us, just watched all of us. I remember one of the counselors went and just sat maybe 5 feet in front of him and just sat himself down and stared right back at him until the guy got up and left. And it was one of the more memorable, freaky, horrifying stranger experiences.
Yeah, it's wild that all of them happened to you as a child.
That one,
I
was probably in high school or getting closer. I was pretty close to high school, probably.
I feel like I rarely had a weird encounter with a stranger as a child, but I feel like as an adult, there have been way more bizarre situations with strangers. In a strange turn of events, a woman at the gym asked me out. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, you must have been doing something right on.
Yeah.
You must have been hitting the glute machine proper.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And it started off pretty standard. Went to a bar. She's like, my friend's a bartender. I'll give us free drinks. We're like, yeah. And she's like, okay, we're going to go to my buddy's house. I said, okay. Hop in the car. We just keep driving. we drive thinking we're going to stay in the city of Chicago, keep driving. I'm like, damn, we've been driving for like
I think you've told
30,
me this
45 minutes.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
I got to piss. Like, so I was like, are we like close? She's like, yeah, we're close. So when we get out of this random house, we go to it. Everyone's doing fucking cocaine. Everyone's strung out.
Yep.
This girl who I was on a date with eventually was like, I'm going to take some Xanax. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to take Xanax. She,
Good boy.
She took the Xanax, immediately fucking like conked out on my shoulder. And I'm sitting here being like, I don't know what's going on. This is weird. I'm in a house full of strangers. They're all doing a bunch of drugs. They're on cocaine. They're like very into the cocaine and like kind of like, yeah, man, mostly all guys. I'm kind of like,
That's how
I need to get out of
usually
here.
are.
Yeah.
They're usually into the cocaine.
Yes, exactly. yeah,
It's very rare that they're like, that's enough of that.
Well, I mean, like they were, they were getting more and more
of course.
just talk, really fucking coked out. I just coked out. I should have just said that. Anyway, I'm like, I need to get out of here. This is a bad situation. So I like wake the girl up who's asleep on me, and she's like, stumbles, walks, and I was like, oh shit, she needs some help. And I like helping her and then trying to find the bathroom. She's like, I need to go to the bathroom. And then all of a sudden she just stops, pulls down her pants, and then just pisses on in the middle of the hardwood floor, just pissing. And I'm holding it. I'm like, I cannot hold this woman while she's pissing. I don't want to get pissed on. And so like, I like let go of her. She just squats. She's fine. She pisses in the middle of the floor. And then here I am, and the dudes on coke are like, whoa, bro, is that your chick?
Is that your
kind of like that's the thing? Yeah. And I was like, I just met this person. Like, yeah, she like, I don't know her.
She's sort of my chick.
And yeah, she just pissed it, and I'm like, they were kind of reacting and kind of like, oh, what the hell, man? And I'm sitting here like, I don't know what to do. No one else here seems to really care that there's like a massive puddle of piss on the floor. So I like looked. I was like, do y'all have like any like paper towels or anything to like cover this up?
No.
And they were like, no, man, this isn't my house or whatever. And then like there was like a room with a coat, and so I found this coat. And no one was using it. I put it over because I was like, I don't want people to step in the piss.
Right. It's worse to step in the piss than then to have your coat covered in it.
Yeah. And I was like, no one's using this. And so I was like, okay, this is bad. I need to get the hell out of here. But I was like, that was like such a weird.
Did you leave her there? What'd you do?
Yeah, I left her there.
You got a.
I said, I'm gonna go, and she's like, okay.
Or you drove back?
No, it took me like 20 minutes to hail a cab, and then the guy was like, "Where are you going?" And I told him my address. He's like, "What are you doing out here?" And I was like,
"Nothing good."
Yeah, I said nothing good.
Something bad happened.
Yes. But it was like it was like, he was like, I was literally driving, and he's like, this is, I was about to call it a night, and I myself was very lucky because Uber wasn't a thing then, or if it wasn't going that far out. And so I was just like, I'm so lucky that, I got picked up. And then she texted me the next day, and she was like, LOL, so sorry. I went a little hard, and I was like, yeah, I don't think. She kind of texted me understanding that
oops.
Yeah, we're not going to see each other again.
Okay, so these are some of the worst experiences with
with a stranger. Yeah.
That's about as bad as it can go, other than getting in an full on altercation. Some good experiences with strangers. Well, at one time you and I were strangers. Yes.
Yeah. I think yes.
So you could say that went well.
All of our friends are at one time strangers.
So that's one of the best things about strangers is that you can convert them into friends and allies.
Yes.
And sometimes business partners. And other good things as such as that is. But the way I'd say the moment of the meeting determines, like I'll say the first 30 minutes to an hour determines maybe the whole rest of how that's going to go. Are we going to stay strangers, and then at a certain point you're strangers long enough you become an acquaintance.
Yeah.
And that's just somebody who you just don't really have the time to really want to get to know much about.
Yes.
But you can't be like, well, they're my friend, but you also can't be like, I don't really fucking know. But that's a stranger. So acquaintances are strangers. I'm saying it now.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Or they become good friends. I just was remembering, because I saw him last week, 2 weeks ago maybe. I was in Moab, Utah. My friend Sam, who I met because we both took a poetry class in college, poetry writing class, not like, doing anything academic, just writing poetry. I just needed a writing credit. And,
Yeah.
thought that was worthwhile. And I met Sam because every week he had a Choco Taco and a big gulp from 7-Eleven or from Circle K, something from Circle K. And I sat by him a couple weeks in a row. And then once, I think I happened to be leaving Circle K to go to that class at the same time as he was. And I saw him buying it. And he bought the Choco Taco and then an Arizona iced tea. Is that the one? Like, it was like a hard iced tea, basically.
Arizona's not.
Okay, he got an Arizona iced tea, and then
now I think they make a hard.
I think
iced
he got
tea.
an Arizona iced tea, and then he like added like whiskey or something to it.
Yeah.
And then he like walked over and he explained like, "Oh yeah, man, every week I come to this class, I get my Choco Taco and I get my like iced tea with liquor in it. And I just kind of post up in the corner and just chill out at poetry class."
And he just writes poetry.
Yeah, he was like writes poetry, and then we made listened to other people's awful poetry, and we became friends immediately because I thought that was such a funny, strange thing to be doing just fully by yourself.
That is wonderful.
And then we also just started roasting just everything about the class, and the guys who were like way too self-serious.
Finding out a stranger or someone who you see a lot has been liquored up. Literally every time you see them is
and also every time you see them, they have a Choco Taco.
Yeah.
Really strange.
Yeah.
And then Sam and I were in a band, and then we'll still write stuff and send it to each other every now and then. He now has a family, a very English family. I found out. Well, his wife's English, and I was just impressed by how English his children are. His daughter is maybe 3 years old, and I got in trouble because I kept repeating everything she would say. Because I kind of
she has an accent.
Oh, because they live in Norwich. They live in north of London somewhere.
Oh, well, that's all you needed to say. I thought they lived in there. I thought that they were like
no.
from Utah.
I just hadn't been around a friend's child that was English, and Sam's from like Birmingham, Alabama, not Birmingham, England. But he's picked up English affectations and English mannerisms, and like the way he speaks. He says proper and quite and posh.
Yeah.
But I got in trouble because I kept his daughter would just say something that was just absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
Like the most over the top, proper, correct grammar and like refined like way of speaking, and I just couldn't believe a 3-year-old was saying it, and I would just kind of like repeat it back. I think he maybe felt like, or maybe she felt like I was like making fun of her. Can I show Griffin my nightie? Yes. Yes, I want a spaghetti-o.
Yeah. Kids shouldn't be talking like that.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyways,
kids should have fucked up speech impediments.
Be scared.
They should be unintelligible.
Jeez, I keep hitting this mic.
They should go to public school. They should be sent to speech pathologists. So my wife have a job. To help wrap things up here, if you had to disrupt strangers, if we're trying to turn strangers on their head, how would you do it?
The obvious thing is we want to make strangers friends.
Yes.
I think maybe is there a way to keep strangers strangers? Keep strangers strange. Because I think there's a lot of value in that. There's some of these people who I don't want them, if they overripe, they become acquaintances. So I think to truly disrupt strangers, you don't need to be turning them into friends. Some of them will turn into friends. That's a natural process we don't need to be interfering with. But is there a way to sort of bask in the glory of the stranger for longer? Is there a way to maybe sort of hit a conversational gate and say up, and that's actually past the boundaries of this relationship? I have to stay a stranger. I cannot let you know my name.
Yes, I think there are a few.
An acquaintance
I think
is a stranger whose name you know. First off,
yeah, but I think you can know someone's name and them still be a stranger.
I think once you know their name, they're an acquaintance.
You're like one of those. It's like in Magic where you're like, oh, if I know your name, I have your power.
I don't think it's a magic thing. You fucking nerd.
but it's like oh, if you know someone's name, you know how to.
Maybe. I mean, it's.
I think you can know someone's name and have them be a stranger.
Yeah,
there are a lot
of
dudes like that Fred guy in the locker room. I didn't know that much about him, but I knew his name.
Acquaintance. You know his job. You know it's someone nearby.
I think eventually he became an acquaintance, but I feel like there are a lot of people where it's like,
race.
I know that person's his race. yeah. Like,
once we know those things, they're acquaintances.
Yeah. I one of my things that disrupt stranger that I was gonna say is I was like, oh, it would be legitimately great if someone had a minute time limit.
Yeah.
First, like a time limit for a conversation.
Yeah.
They couldn't corner you and just tell you about this is my crazy life, where you're just like, I'm captive, but you can only get across so much information so that you can bask in the glory of the stranger longer.
I think this is a solution for both of these desires.
Yeah.
The minute time limit.
Yes.
Minute and a half.
Yeah. Maybe a minute and a half.
I know, because that's just small time. It is fun to have strangers that you suddenly have an insane, deep connection with, and then you never see them again, and maybe that's a different class of stranger.
Yeah.
But the time limit maybe keeps them in the stranger zone. It needs to be like a time limit and also within like a frequency limit as well. Yeah. Because if I'm talking to you for a minute and a half every day, we're becoming acquaintances quick.
Yes.
But if it's a minute and a half once a month, that's a stranger. I barely remember anything about you. And then I don't think it's about. I don't think you're keeping them from becoming strangers, but you're prolonging the magic. Second Cake album. I think.
Prolonging the magic.
I think it's called Prolonging the Magic. Anyways, that's what it's about. It's prolonging the lifespan of the stranger relationship.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And our solution is you find who these people are, who you enjoy them being strangers, and after a minute of them talking, you turn and walk away. Or hit them with your stun gun if you work at the window one.
Yeah.
Knock them out. Yeah. Or your billy club if you're a female employee. Or trans and you've chosen that.
Jesus Christ. Oh, man. See, I was thinking I was going to wrap it up on a nice little thing that we discovered, which is strangers are magic.
Yes, sure.
You know, and that's why we love them. There's a little bit. Strangers keep the magic in life. They keep the magic in humanity. And they're a wonderful thing. We love strangers. We love strangers. That was an awkward way.
I'll wrap it up. And that's on God.
Goober Time is produced by me, Griffin, and Lauren Talmadge. Executive produced by Tim McGower. Associate producer Ahmed Stork, and aspiring producer Little Jimmy Penn. Goober Time is engineered by Roger Goodrich and recorded at Detweiler Sound in Humboldt, Tupelo, Mississippi. Sound mixing by Reed Armband with music by Laser Monster, which is Griffin in the past. You can check it out at lasermonster.bandcamp.com. Tom's costume was provided by Padma Lakshmi with catering provided by Kokomo's Mungo Lounge. Kokomo's, if you can't take her here, you can't take her anywhere.